When you talk about bumping a player, it's pretty much
great courage. One that says the bump is dead, that's how you deliver it.
What is going on, YouTube universe? My name is Trent. Some of you guys at home might know me as Zirra for other content I throw out on YouTube, and welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where today I'm going to very, very sadly lament on my incredibly subpar tipping from round 5 before getting our tips in ahead of round 6, which I think is actually the final round of these early buys before we get the mid-season buys. It's fucking stupid. I've been talking about it for weeks on this channel, how ridiculous I think this early buy system is, but not as ridiculous as the tipping that I made this past week, which I've gone back to striking at 50%, because I tipped 4 out of 8. It was incredibly fucking subpar. I am very disappointed in myself. I backed myself in with some decisions. Obviously, I tipped Melbourne to win by 20 points. They in fact lost by 22 to Brisbane. I tipped the Bulldogs to win. Essendon got up. We managed to get the tip right with GWS beating St Kilda by a singular point. Carlton lost to Adelaide by 2. Gold Coast absolutely belted Hawthorn. Port Adelaide fell over the line in a close game against Fremantle. Geelong did their job against North Melbourne. And my boys got absolutely demoralised by West Coast, which gave me a 4 out of 8 round. Very disappointing. However, there is somebody who tipped 7 out of 8, which was the most correct amount of tips in the tipping competition I am currently running for the Hip and Shoulder. There is still plenty of time to join that as well. It's free to join. Just jump on board, have some fun. The banter in the comments sometimes when talking about this competition is pretty elite, so get on board. Let's have some fun. But better than Trent was definitely better than Trent this week, and Damien has been waiting for me to read the name of his team all season, and I was hoping it'd be later in the year when I did so. But better than Trent, Damien, congratulations for tipping the most correct amount of tips this week. And looking at the total tips, that actually puts better than Trent in second place, tied with Benny Craig and Tony Chop Chop. But Team Wiggles, Shannon, has taken a 1-point lead and continues to run the top of the comp like they have for majority of the season. And when you run down, I'm currently sitting 18th out of 21. Fantastic. I am currently situated 6 actual tips behind first place. That's going to be a lot of ground to cover over the coming weeks. Can I make up some ground this week though? Who knows? But heading into round 6, as I said, it is the end of the bye rounds. I think we have 8 games this weekend, both Melbourne and Richmond sitting this game out before their Anzac Day Eve clash next weekend. But it kicks off tonight at Marvel Stadium between St Kilda and the Bulldogs. And at the time that I'm recording this video, it is it's almost midnight. So by the time this drops, it'll already be the day of Thursday, I think. But we've had team announcements for this game already. Max King is out for St Kilda. And for the Bulldogs, we have Jamara Ugle-Hagan out due to a personal reason. Oscar Baker has been omitted. And Tom Liberatore is out due to injury. I still think it was concussion, but we don't know. It's all up in the air. I believe Rory Lobb has come in for the Bulldogs. Garcia has come in for the Bulldogs. And there was somebody else. I can't remember off the top of my head. But this is very, very damning to me, because Caleb Daniel was omitted last week and he does not get back into this team again after having a pretty down week in the VFL. This is still an All-Australian caliber player. I've made my opinions felt about the Bulldogs and Luke Beveridge as a coach in my latest podcast recapping round 5. I think there is going to be a video inbound to this channel talking about the state of the Western Bulldogs moving forward. I'm inclined here originally to tip St Kilda, but without Max King, I don't know how they're going to operate as a forward half. And with Max King in the team the last couple of weeks, they've still struggled to score in that first half of football. We saw against Richmond 2 weeks ago, they struggled to get a goal on the board until late in the dying moments of the first half. They didn't score until late in the first quarter against GWS last week, with Jack Higgins kicking goals both times, ironically. So they're going to have to rely on the likes of Caminiti, Membry, Higgins, you know, those type of players. Whereas the Bulldogs, I feel their biggest loss is Tom Liberatore, because around the contest, he is an absolute machine. And now without him in there, you've got the likes of Jack Steele and, you know, Marcus Windhager that can go shut down somebody like a McRae or somebody like a Bontempelli, because I feel Liberatore is one you want to put a lot of time into because of his pressure work. And without Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, I don't rate Rory Lobb as high. It's going to be very interesting to see how this game goes. I'm inclined to think the Bulldogs might get the win here, but I'm going to back St Kilda because I infinitely liked how St Kilda played against GWS more than what I saw from the Bulldogs against Essendon and lack thereof. I'm going to go St Kilda by... I'm going to go 23 points. Neutral territory for both teams, obviously being at Marvel Stadium, and when we look at the form guide, their last 5, it's been win-loss for St Kilda, and it's been thereabouts for the Bulldogs as well, both sitting 12th and 11th on the ladder. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this game plays out, because both teams currently, I think, are thereabouts, kind of in no man's land though, outside of the 8. Friday night, Adelaide Oval, Adelaide taking on Essendon. Again, this is a game I feel Essendon, they played themselves into form against the Bulldogs. Can they hit the road and do it against Adelaide? And then we've got Adelaide, who came down to Marvel against Carlton and had an emphatic win, knocking that, you know, undefeated streak of Carlton and Carlton itself off of their perch. I'm going to go Adelaide at home. I'm inclined to think they're going to come home after that big win. It's going to give them a lot of momentum, a lot of self-belief, and I think this is where they start catapulting their season forward. Saturday afternoon, Collingwood, Port Adelaide at the MCG. This is going to be a clash. This is going to be a great game. Both teams playing into form. Collingwood had a rough start. We've got Port Adelaide, who on the flip side have been, even though they lost their first few, they've been one of the more dominant teams over the last couple of weeks, even with that loss to Melbourne. I'm actually thinking Port Adelaide. I'm going to tip Port Adelaide this week. There's something about this group that is infinitely different to what we saw last year. Similarly with Collingwood. I think Collingwood will want to come out and win this game, knowing that there's a bit of a grudge match here, knowing that, you know, Nathan Murphy retired this past week, so they want to get a win for their, you know, for their fallen comrade, and they want to go. They're Wanagonna, all right. They're going to want to get their season back on track properly. You know, they need to start knocking off teams like Port Adelaide. I just think Port Adelaide can come down and do a bit of damage. I'm not going to change my tip. I've got to roll the dice with a couple of decisions to move up this ladder. I'm going to go with Port. Over at Marvel, Carlton taking on GWS, and I am going to go GWS in this game. I think this is going to be match of the round. This is easily going to be match of the round for me. You've got a team who is still sitting undefeated on top of the ladder versus a team who should be undefeated still, but fell to a very emphatic and youthful Adelaide lineup. Carlton, however, no McGovern, they're going to have no Sard, and they're missing somebody else as well from that back half. And I think the likes of Toby Green, Jesse Hogan, Aaron Cadman, I think they're going to find those holes rather easily in that defensive lineup, and they're going to take advantage. Over at the Gabba, we have Brisbane taking on Geelong. This, again, I think this has the makings of potentially being match of the round, because we've got a Brisbane who's back in form, and we've got a Geelong Cats who remain undefeated as well as GWS. And I would automatically say, yeah, let's lock in Brisbane for the win. However, they have shown this year they can fumble games at the Gabba quite easily, and I'm going to go with Geelong here. I've loved how Geelong have played. Their systems this year have held up. Tom Hawkins was rested last week. I think that was a great move considering they're travelling to the Gabba, so he's going to come into this game fresh-faced. Jeremy Cameron is in ripping form. They've just got everything working for them, Geelong. On the flip side, Brisbane's midfield went to work last week, and players like Danaher, McCarthy, Cameron, they all got involved, and they all started picking up, you know, I think self-belief is what they've really gained, but I think Geelong are going to knock them off at home. Big call, a decision I might change, but I think Geelong are a hot chance here. Optus Stadium, Saturday night, we have the Western Derby. We have West Coast taking on Fremantle. I am going to back Fremantle. Should have very well beaten Carlton and Port Adelaide and could very well still be sitting undefeated, as well as GWS and Geelong, which is shocking to think, really, because the losses they've had to Carlton and to Port Adelaide are within 10 points. Huge for Fremantle this year. West Coast coming off of an absolute belting of Richmond, and I think they're going to come into this game thinking they can win it. I think, though, Fremantle have improved way too far this year to fumble this game. Sunday at the SCG, we have Sydney taking on the Gold Coast Suns. Sydney obviously coming off of the bye. I think that is going to hold them in good stead. I think Sydney are going to win this game against the Gold Coast quite easily. It's rumoured that Luke Parker is going to be coming back in the next couple of weeks, so very interesting to see with Taylor Adams back in the team and now Luke Parker coming back into circulation, whether or not Isaac Heaney remains a pure midfielder like he has been, because I think Horse would be a miss if he was taking Heaney out of that midfield. He'd be fucking crazy to do so. And the round finishes with North Melbourne taking on Hawthorn, which does mean after round 6, there is only going to be, barring a draw in this game, one team that has not won a game yet. Obviously, West Coast defeating Richmond last week and Adelaide defeating Carlton made them get their first wins. And this is a game that I can see going both ways. I am very inclined, however, and I'm going to do this, and it might shock some. I'm going to tip North Melbourne. North Melbourne, I think, have shown more to me throughout the year than what Hawthorn have. They got belted by Geelong last week, don't get me wrong, but Hawthorn got beaten quite convincingly by the Gold Coast as well. And even though both teams got smacked, I think North Melbourne showed more in their fight against Geelong than what Hawthorn did against the Gold Coast. And collectively over the year, I think Northorn? I just said Northorn, holy shit. I think North Melbourne have shown more collectively in their glimpses than what Hawthorn have. So I am going to go with North Melbourne to win this game. Again, another roll of the dice, probably against my better judgment, but got to make some moves. And I could see it happening. It's not like out of a realm of disbelief, or, it's not, impossible to think that this could happen, because I think it can happen. Hawthorn, I think, are far worse off this year than what North Melbourne have been. I mean, North might be getting beaten some weeks quite soundly, but Hawthorn, I think their inconsistencies let them down, because we saw them take it to Collingwood 2 weeks ago and then get belted by the Gold Coast, which you would have thought Hawthorn would have been a better chance against the Gold Coast last week, given that form against Collingwood. I don't know. This could be very well another tip I change, but I'm happy to stick with North Melbourne for now as a roll of the dice, trying to get some cheeky tips over the line. So, St Kilda, Adelaide, Port Adelaide, GWS, Geelong, Fremantle, Sydney and North Melbourne is where I am currently situating my tips for the week. Again, probably subject to change once I see full teams released. For those of you who want to have a little bit of a gamble and a little bit of a punt over the weekend, I do have a couple of multis that have been formulated for myself for you guys at home. But again, just as a little disclaimer, I don't ever want to force you guys into betting. That's something that you guys are perfectly able to make a decision upon by yourselves. Remember, if you do gamble responsibly. It's not a hard concept to grasp. We've got 2 multis this weekend, which you can take separately or you can combine for a juicier outcome. The first is a 10-leg same game multi coming for the Adelaide versus Essendon game. We have Darcy Fogarty, Ben Keys, Xavier Dersma to all kick 1 goal anytime. We have Isaac Rankin and Kyle Langford to kick 2+ goals for the game. Zach Merritt and Nick Martin to have over 25 disposals each. Dyson Heppel and Mason Redman to both have over 15 disposals each. And Jake Stringer to notch up a goal at any time, and that is going to return you $7.50. Again, not a huge return for 10 legs, but it's one that you could play a little bit safe if you wanted to get some money into your back pocket. The second multi for the weekend, and final multi that is the 10-leg same-game multi for Brisbane versus Geelong, which has Jeremy Cameron and Darcy Wilmot to both have 15+ disposals, Lachie Neale, Josh Dunkley, Dane Zorko to all have over 25 disposals, Brad Close, Eric Hipwood, Tyson Stengel to all kick a goal anytime, with Joe Danaher and Jeremy Cameron to kick 2+ goals for the game, and that's going to return you a tasty $9. But if that is not enough for you, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to throw both that 10-leg same-game multi of Brisbane and Geelong and 10-leg same-game multi for Adelaide and Essendon into a 2-leg multi to return you a collected $67.50. Do you taste that? I taste a bargain. That is it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. Do hope, you're enjoying the tips that I put out and, having fun with the multis and stuff like that. When it comes to making content on this channel, I'm really finding my feet and I'm really enjoying what I do. So if you are reciprocating that joy, if you want to get on board and grow this community, I would appreciate if you did one of two things: hitting that like button and hitting that subscribe button as well. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, provided you're not a Richmond or a Melbourne supporter. I think as a Richmond supporter, I'm happy we're getting the week off, because after getting beaten quite comprehensively by West Coast, I think we need the break. I will catch you guys. I forgot that I was doing an outro for a second then. I will catch you guys next time.